The door slammed in her face. Again, Sarah Langford stood frozen in the hallway, clutching the wrinkled letter that would change everything. It wasn't thick, no envelope. Just one cold page with one colder sentence. Your employment is terminated. Effective immediately. It wasn't about her performance. Her projects were always early, her reports spotless. It wasn't behavior. She'd never once raised her voice or been late. No, this was about image. Their words, not hers. You're not the right fit anymore. It's branding. She knew what it meant. She didn't wear designer heels like the others. Her coat was second-hand. Her phone was old. Lunch for her meant a plain sandwich from home, not sushi from the overpriced cafe downstairs. She didn't belong to their world. The elevator dinged. She stepped inside slowly, ignoring the stairs. From the corner of her eye, she saw two of her former co-workers exchange smirks. She remembered when she helped them meet a deadline, stayed late without asking for credit. One of them even borrowed money once, never paid it back. Now they couldn't even look her in the eye. As the doors closed, Sarah blinked hard. No tears. She had cried enough in life. When her mother died, when her father left, when her brother fell sick and she had to drop out of college to raise him. But not here, not in this place, not in front of them. She stepped into the cold November air. No savings, no job, rent due in 4 days. But somehow, in the pit of despair, a quiet voice echoed in her heart. Let this be the last time they decide your future. 2 years later, the Kingswell boardroom smelled of arrogance and air freshener. The walls were lined with awards and gold plaques, all neatly polished, relics of a company that once prided itself on values. Sarah almost laughed at the irony. These people had no memory of who she was, and that was her power. They were expecting the mysterious buyer of their failing corporation today. What they didn't expect was that the buyer would walk in wearing the same face they once ignored, only now, with power in her eyes. Sarah Langford, CEO of Langford Holdings, stepped out of the black car outside and into the marble-floored lobby of Kingswell Corporation, the same building where she was once dismissed like trash. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, friendly but distracted. "Yes," Sarah said, her voice calm, confident. "I'm here for the board meeting." The receptionist frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, may I ask?" Sarah handed her a card. Clean white, embossed in silver foil. Langford Holdings. CEO Sarah Langford, flashback, year 1. After being fired, Sarah didn't have time to break down. Her younger brother, Liam, was 17 and still recovering from surgery. She had 2 jobs, and barely enough to cover rent. Losing her main income shattered the structure of her life like glass. She applied to dozens of jobs. No calls, no replies. One night she opened her old laptop and stared at the blinking cursor. And then she typed, "What happens if I stop asking permission and start building?" She started with freelance copywriting. She edited resumes, wrote blogs, designed logos for $10 a piece. Every dollar went to rent and groceries. Slowly, her skills improved. She learned SEO, took free business courses online, built a website, sold digital templates, ran tiny ads using gift card balances, and then came her break. A struggling flower shop in Manchester needed an e-commerce website. Sarah built it in 5 days, free of charge. In a month, the shop's sales tripled, and they told others. Word spread. In 6 months, she launched a business called Bridge and Bloom, helping small businesses go digital. It grew fast, and so did her confidence. She no longer chased job offers. She created opportunities. Back to present, boardroom meeting. The boardroom was filled with nervous energy. Kingswell had been sinking for over a year. Layoffs, lawsuits, financial missteps. And now they were praying for a miracle investor to save them. When Sarah entered, silence fell. 12 men, 3 women, expensive suits, pale expressions. No one recognized her. Not yet. She walked slowly to the head of the table, pulled out the chair and sat down. "Good morning," she said simply. One man finally cleared his throat. "Ms. Langford, I'm James Wexler," she finished, glancing at the nameplate. "Chief Operating Officer. Fired me 2 years ago for not matching the brand aesthetic. Ring a bell?" James blinked. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No," Sarah said, cutting him off. "I think you understood perfectly. You made it very clear that someone who couldn't afford designer clothes wasn't welcome here. Well, I bought the whole building, so I guess I can wear what I want now." A stunned silence followed. Sarah took out her phone and tapped once. Her legal team entered, dropping acquisition papers on the table. "You all work for Langford Holdings now. As of this morning, I own 85% controlling interest." She let that hang in the air for a moment. "But I didn't come back for revenge." She paused. "I came for truth." Flashback. The real reason. She returned. It wasn't just about being fired. It was about what happened the day before she was fired. The discovery of a document. While working late, Sarah had found a memo buried in a company folder. It listed budget cuts to employee healthcare funds and pension plans, while simultaneously approving large bonuses for top executives. She didn't tell anyone, but she saved a copy, and after being fired the next day, she suspected why. Now, she had a legal team investigating. The paper trail was clearer than ever. This wasn't just personal. This was corruption. Back to present, the unexpected. Twist. As the meeting moved forward, Sarah stood, ready to dismiss a few key players. Then, the door opened. In walked Clara Jennings, her old team manager, the one person who had been kind, the only one who ever asked how she was doing. But Clara looked pale, nervous. She wasn't here for business. "Sarah," she whispered, "I need to talk to you, in private." Sarah hesitated. Clara's hands were trembling. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. Clara's eyes glistened. "It's about what really happened the night you were fired. You don't know everything." Sarah froze. Clara leaned in. "There's something you never knew. Someone higher up made that call, not just about you. It was a cover-up." Sarah's heartbeat picked up. "What cover-up?" Clara looked toward the boardroom glass wall. "They're watching. We can't talk here. But if you still trust me, meet me tonight. I'll show you everything." Sarah's world tilted slightly. She thought she knew the whole story. But now, a new layer was unfolding, and what Clara had to say might not only reveal the truth, it might change everything Sarah believed about her own rise. The security guard almost dropped his coffee when he saw her step through the glass. Doors! It had been 5 long years since Mira had last walked through those gates. The same polished floor, the cold air conditioning that once chilled her bones, the reception desk where she used to be ignored. But now she wasn't just walking in. She was owning the moment. The receptionist, a young woman named Chloe, gave her a nervous smile. "Do you have an appointment?" Mira returned a calm smile. "Yes, I believe they're expecting me upstairs." She didn't need a badge. She didn't need permission. Her heels clicked confidently on the marble as she headed to the elevator, her heart thumping, but not from fear, from power. 5 years ago, she was poor, unnoticed, and discarded like trash. Now she was the majority shareholder of this company, and nobody saw it coming. 5 years earlier, after Mira was fired for something as ridiculous and cruel as not fitting the company image, she had nothing but pain and humiliation. The humiliation of packing her box, the whispers, the pitying stares, the silence from the same people who once laughed with her in the break room. But losing that job was also the moment something changed deep inside her. She stopped begging life for chances. She decided she'd build her own path, even if it meant walking through fire. Mira started small. She worked nights at a cafe, mornings at a library. Every hour she wasn't working, she was learning, taking free online courses in finance, entrepreneurship, management. She read obsessively about stocks, investments, company law. One day, during a shift at the cafe, she overheard two businessmen discussing a failing logistics startup. The startup needed funding. Fast. Mira did something crazy. She introduced herself. They laughed at her at first, but she had a savings of $6,000. She invested it all. Everyone thought she was being foolish. But within 2 years, the startup boomed. Mira's small stake turned into a fortune. She didn't stop there. She reinvested, acquired more companies, and started her own small holding group. When she learned that the very company that once fired her was quietly being sold off, Mira acted fast. Using a silent investor's name, she bought 53% of the shares. She had become the boss, and nobody knew until today. Back to the present, Mira stepped out of the elevator. The same floor where she once sat in a cramped cubicle was now buzzing in confusion. Heads turned. Some didn't recognize her at first, but then they did. The whispers began. "Is that Mira? Wait, what's she doing here?" She walked into the boardroom where the top executives sat. Harold, the man who fired her, Rachel, the woman who smirked as she cleaned out her desk, and others who never bothered to remember her name. Harold stood up, confused. "Can we help you, miss?" She placed a folder on the table, slowly sliding it toward him. "Actually," she said, her voice calm, "I'm here to help you. Or rather, I was, until I saw the latest internal reports." Rachel opened the folder and gasped. Harold's face went pale. "Where did you get these?" Mira didn't blink. "From my office. I'm the majority shareholder. I now control this company." Silence fell over the room. "You what?" Harold stuttered. "I bought the company 3 weeks ago," she said. "Legally, quietly, efficiently. While you were busy approving bonuses for yourselves and ignoring the crashing stock value." Rachel looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "That's impossible." "No," Mira said. "What's impossible is the fact that you still think people like me stay broken forever. We don't. The cleanup begins." Within hours, Mira called for a full internal audit. Years of mismanagement were uncovered. Hidden losses, inflated expense reports, fake consulting fees. Mira didn't yell. She didn't need to. Her calm presence was more powerful than rage. She began replacing executives, not with outsiders, but with hard-working employees who were loyal, sharp, and once overlooked, just like she had been. Janet, a woman from accounting who had quietly kept the department running despite being ignored, was promoted to CFO. David, the shy IT guy who knew the entire infrastructure like the back of his hand, became head of operations. She wasn't just firing people. She was restoring justice. The confrontation with Harold. Harold barged into her office one afternoon, red-faced. "You can't just destroy people's careers like this." Mira looked up from her laptop. "You're right. Careers are built with hard work, not golf games and company funds used for vacations." He clenched his fists. "I made this company what it is." "No," Mira said quietly. "People like me made this company what it was. You just took credit for it." He laughed bitterly. "So what now? Revenge?" She smiled. "No, not revenge. Just correction. The human side." But power didn't make Mira bitter. She visited the janitors who always greeted her. She upgraded their salaries. She created scholarship programs for employees' children. She launched free lunch programs for interns. She didn't want fear in the building. She wanted fairness. One afternoon, a young intern approached her quietly. "Ma'am, is it true you used to work here?" Mira smiled. "Yes. I was once in your shoes." The girl hesitated. "What changed?" Mira paused. "I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who couldn't see it. I proved it to myself instead." Twist. The secret Rachel kept. Just when things were settling, Mira received an anonymous email. It had one sentence. Rachel was the one who reported your poverty status to HR. Mira was stunned. Back then, the company had no formal reason to fire her. She did her job well, but someone had fed HR information about her struggling financial life, her bus commute, her borrowed office clothes, the fact she sometimes skipped lunch. Mira called Rachel into her office. "Tell me, Rachel, did you report me to HR back then?" Rachel froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." Mira slid the printed email toward her. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Rachel's facade cracked. "You didn't belong here," she said bitterly. "You made the rest of us look fake, always so real. And Harold liked you. There it was. Jealousy, pettiness, the real reason. You destroyed someone's livelihood." "And for what?" Mira asked. Rachel didn't answer. Mira leaned back. "I'm not firing you, Rachel. I'm giving you a new title." Rachel blinked. "What?" "Receptionist. Starting Monday. That's what fairness looks like. Maybe you'll finally learn to see people for who they really are." The name on the paper burned into Mira's hand like fire. Rafiq Khan. Her father. A man she hadn't seen or spoken to in 17 years. A name she had buried along with all the pain of her childhood. Why was he here now? Why was he looking for her? She sat quietly in her office, staring at the note under the warm glow of her desk lamp. Outside the glass walls, the office was empty. The city lights blinked in the distance, but Mira felt like she was the only person on Earth. Alone, confused, and suddenly vulnerable. Memories flood back. The last time Mira saw her father, she was 12. He had been drunk again and yelling at her mother. Her mother had tried to shield Mira, but that night ended with broken glass, blood on the wall, and the police knocking on their door. Rafiq was arrested, and after that, Mira and her mother moved to a shelter, then a small rented room in a slum. Her mother worked 3 jobs to keep them fed. Rafiq never came looking, not once. For years, Mira held on to anger, then pain, and finally, silence. And now, after all these years, he wanted to talk. The first meeting. The next morning, Mira arrived early at the office, long before anyone else. Her hair was tied back and she wore no makeup, just a plain black sweater and jeans. Today, she didn't want to be the powerful woman. She wanted to be herself. She instructed the front desk to let Rafiq in if he came again. By noon, he was there. She watched from her office window as an old man walked in, stooped slightly with shaky hands and sunken eyes. His beard was mostly white, his coat looked worn, and yet those eyes were the same. He sat down outside her office like a quiet stranger. Mira stood in front of him. He looked up, and for a long moment they just stared at each other. Finally, he said softly, "You look just like your mother." Her throat tightened. "You remember her?" "Every day," he said. "Every single day." An awkward conversation. They sat across from each other. Rafiq's hands trembled as he held a cup of tea she offered. He didn't touch it. "I don't want anything from you," he said quickly. "No money, no pity." "Then why are you here?" Mira asked. He hesitated. "Because I was wrong about everything. I thought I was too broken to be a father. I left because I thought you'd be better off without me, but I was just a coward." Mira remained silent. "I read about you in the papers," he said. "Your story, your comeback. I saw your photo and, my God, I knew I had to try, even if you shut the door in my face." "You hurt us," Mira said. "You destroyed my mother." "No," he whispered, "and I will carry that till my last breath." Mira didn't cry. She wouldn't give him that. But inside, her heart cracked open just a little. The twist, just as she was about to stand up and end the meeting, Rafiq said something that made her stop cold. "There's something else, something I never told anyone." Mira froze. "What?" "I once worked for this company." Mira stared at him. "What are you talking about?" He nodded. "Back in the late 90s. I was in maintenance. Night shift. I knew every inch of this building. I saw things that could destroy people. Mira narrowed her eyes. What things? He leaned closer and lowered his voice. Before they fired me, I saw Harold and a few others shredding documents late one night. They didn't know I was still in the building. I took some of those papers, hid them. Her heart started racing. Why would you keep them? Insurance, he said bitterly, in case I ever needed leverage, but I never used them. I forgot. Hid them until recently. What kind of documents? Evidence of fraud, years ago, before you were even here. Mira's brain was spinning. Do you still have them? I think so, he said. They're hidden. I just need time to find them. Distrust and dilemma. Mira didn't know what to believe. Her father, an alcoholic stranger from her past, now claiming he had damning evidence against the very men who tried to destroy her life. It sounded impossible. And yet, what if it was true? She asked for his number and told him to call her when he found the documents. As he left, he turned and said, I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I'm proud of you. You became everything I never could. For the first time, Mira didn't feel hatred, just sadness and confusion. The company starts to fight back. That evening, Mira received a legal notice. Harold was suing her for defamation, wrongful dismissal and character assassination. Her lawyer explained, they're trying to create chaos. They want to weaken your position. They'll dig into your past, every mistake, every rumor. Mira took a deep breath. Let them. But inside, her nerves were unraveling. She had fought so hard to rise, but one legal trap could crush everything she built. The next morning, the media started whispering. Headlines appeared online. Ex-janitor turned CEO, accused of personal revenge plot. Boardroom drama or corporate witch hunt. Someone was leaking internal emails. Selective. Twisted. Rachel of course it was her. Mira's strategy. Mira called her team. We're not going to panic, she said. We're going to prove our transparency. She arranged a press conference. She spoke with dignity. No tears, no anger, just facts. She showed the company's growth under her leadership. She shared testimonies from employees who'd been promoted based on merit, and she made it clear this company will not fall into the hands of corruption again. But deep inside, she knew she needed those documents her father promised. It could be the final card she had left. The night call at 11:42 p.m., her phone rang. It was Rafiq. I found them, he whispered. Where are you? An old building near the train station. It's not safe to talk long. Come tomorrow. I'll hand them to you. But be careful. Mira's instinct screamed. Something was wrong, but she had to go. The warehouse smelled like rust and fear. Mira dropped to her knees beside her father, her heart pounding. Dad, can you hear me? Rafiq groaned, his eyelids fluttering open. His lips moved slowly, barely forming words. They knew you'd come. Who did this? She asked, her voice cracking. Who took the documents? He struggled to speak. The man with the scar works with Harold. Rachel, too. Mira felt a wave of nausea. The conspiracy was deeper than she imagined. They hadn't just tried to discredit her. They were willing to hurt people to stay in power. A dangerous game. Mira rushed Rafiq to a hospital. He had a concussion, but would recover. Before he slipped into sleep, he whispered, There's a backup. I never trusted just one copy, but it's not with me. Where is it? She asked. An old friend, Munir. He runs a mechanic shop near the old railway line. I told him to keep it safe. Mira didn't wait. By the next morning, she was standing outside the mechanic's garage. The place looked abandoned. Oil stains covered the floor, and rusted tools hung on crooked nails. Munir, she called out. A man in his 60s stepped from the shadows, wiping his hands on a rag. You must be Rafiq's daughter, he said, calmly. He told me you'd come one day. The hidden truth. Munir walked to a dusty locker in the corner of the garage. He opened it and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Your father said this would shake some big trees," he said, handing it to her. "Be careful, girl. When people are afraid of losing power, they'll do anything." Back in her car, Mira opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were old company bank statements, email printouts, forged invoices, a signed agreement between Harold and a supplier under a fake company name. Each document pointed to years of financial fraud, millions of dollars, siphoned through shell companies created by Harold, Rachel, and 2 other senior executives. Worse, there were signed testimonies from 2 former employees who had mysteriously disappeared from the company years ago. Mira stared at the papers. This was the ammunition she needed, but it was also dangerous. The counterattack begins. Mira didn't go straight to the police or the board. That would be too easy for them to cover up. Instead, she called someone she trusted completely, Priya, a young tech reporter who once interviewed Mira during her comeback. Priya's work had gone viral for exposing a politician's secret land scam. She was fearless and ethical. Mira met her in a quiet cafe. "I'm giving you a story," she said, sliding the documents across the table. "But I need it handled carefully. Verify everything, get real reactions, and go public with it. Fast." Priya's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. "This could bring down the entire board." "I know," Mira said, "and they're not going down without a fight." The calm. Before the storm for 2 days, there was silence. No calls, no threats, no signs from Harold or Rachel. But Mira could feel the tension, like a storm gathering quietly in the distance. Then on the 3rd day, all hell broke loose. The story breaks headlines, exploded across every major news website. CEO uncovers massive fraud. Evidence points to former board leaders. Millions stolen in silent corporate scandal. Ex-janitor turned CEO sparks firestorm. Whistleblower or warrior, Mira's bold battle against the billionaires. Social media erupted. Employees who had remained silent began speaking up. Old staff who were fired unfairly came forward with stories. Investors demanded emergency meetings. And most importantly, law enforcement got involved. By evening, the company's office was swarmed by investigators. Boxes of files were carried out, computers seized. Rachel was escorted out in handcuffs. Harold, he had disappeared. Rumors said he had fled the country. Public reaction for the first time. The world saw Mira not as a poor girl who got lucky, but as a leader who stood up against power, lies, and fear. TV channels interviewed her. She was calm, strong, but emotional. "I didn't do this to destroy anyone," she said. "I did this because truth matters. Because workers like me, people who come from nothing, deserve fairness, deserve dignity." People across the world began calling her story "The Fire Within." Rafiq's redemption in the hospital. Rafiq watched his daughter on the TV screen, his eyes filled with tears. "I didn't raise her," he told the nurse beside him, "but I'm proud of the woman she became. She saved people. She did what I never had the courage to do." Mira visited him the next day. She didn't say much, just held his hand, and for the first time there was peace between them. Not perfect, not healed, but real. A letter from the da. Past a week after the scandal broke wide open, Mira received a letter. It was written in Harold's handwriting. "You won, Mira, but remember, power always comes with enemies. Be careful, they'll come for you next." There was no return address, but Mira smiled. She had already faced the worst life could throw at her. From cleaning floors to boardrooms. From rejection to revolution. From silence to powerful truth. She had nothing left to fear. The board's decision, a new board was formed after a vote from shareholders. They offered Mira the chance to stay on as CEO with full authority. She declined. "I built the foundation. Now let someone else rise. It's time for me to build something new," she said. Instead, she started the Second Step Foundation, a program to train and support people from underprivileged backgrounds to enter business, leadership roles, because everyone deserves a second step, not just a second chance, she said at the launch event. The foundation grew rapidly, helping thousands. The final lesson. 1 year later, Mira stood on the TEDx stage. Her story had gone global. She stood silently for a moment, letting the audience settle. Then she said, "They fired me for being poor. They said I didn't belong. But what they didn't know was, poverty doesn't make you weak. It makes you fight harder. And when you rise from the dirt, you don't just survive. You bloom." The hall erupted in applause. Mira smiled. Her journey was no longer about revenge. It was about powerful transformation, about truth, about dignity. Closing thought: in a world where money speaks loudest, one woman proved that character still matters. They fired her because they thought she was nothing. She returned and took back everything, with grace, courage, and the truth. The end.